Hey YouTubers, Easy as Pie here again with the Kawasaki 440 stand-up jet ski. This video is taking place midway through my 440 550 swap video, and I decided to break this down in case you didn't want to watch the entire thing. So this will be showing you how to swap the head on your ski. So maybe you picked up a new head, your old head is cracked, or maybe you got an aftermarket head. So I'll kind of hack together part of the swap video into this one, and you can see how that works. So, alright, so if you're just swapping your head, there's a few things you want. Obviously, you want your new head. In this case, I'm using an aftermarket Mariner head. You'll want a new gasket. Typically, these are fiber gaskets, but I'm going with the copper gasket to increase my compression even more. You want a 12mm socket for the nuts on the top. You want a 10mm socket for the two bolts that connect the carburetor bracket to the manifold, or to the head. And you also want a chisel for scraping off the gasket on the top, and possibly some sandpaper, some really light abrasive sandpaper, maybe even just a Scotch-Brite pad or something to scrape that off. So that should be pretty much everything you need for the head swap. Alrighty, so this is what would be the new stock 550 head, which would be going on the new block, but I've decided that I'd rather use an aftermarket head. So this is a Mariner 550 cylinder head. You can see it's significantly different in that the Mariner head is much thicker, and it has these cooling fins as well. And one thing I also noticed after I seated the spark plug is that the spark plug actually sits down about 2mm deeper in the Mariner head than it does in the stock head, so that combustion is going to take place closer to the center of where the gases are being compressed, so you'll get, I'm guessing you'll get a more even burn with this particular head. The other thing I noticed is I grabbed myself, I don't even know where I set it down. Graduated cylinder here, and what I did is I added a bit of soap to the water just to take away the surface tension, and I filled each of these level with water, and right away it's really noticeable. The stock head has 30 mil volume, and the Mariner head has a 22.5 mil volume, so you get much more compression with this. It's a thicker block, so it can handle that compression, or a thicker head, so it can handle that compression. And finally, I was watching another video, and I actually noticed, or this gentleman was talking about the fact that the Mariner head is going to hold a significantly much larger volume of water in that cooling jacket portion as opposed to the stock head. So it has a lot more cooling potential. I think in his video, he was saying it held 300 some odd milliliters, and the stock head only held 200 some odd, so about 50% more water volume. And the other thing with this, actually, I don't know why I was thinking this had two cooling ports on it, but it doesn't. It just has the single port on the side here in the same position. But I believe it's a bigger line. I'm not sure on that one yet. So anyhow, this is the head I'll be using on the machine. The 440 head is off, and as soon as I get the 550 cylinder replaced on the 440, this is what I'll be using. So just some information for you. First off, imagine everything's still in here. You wouldn't normally take anything off. You can just take off just these two bolts here that attach to the side of your carburetor, and then you can take off all of these nuts on the top that you see here. So go ahead and do that. Like I said, you don't have to take your intake manifold off. You don't have to take your exhaust manifold off. So just go ahead, take all those out, and you'll find that your head will come off really easily. And before you get too much further, it'd also be a good idea to remove your spark plugs if you want to reuse them. Otherwise, now would be a great time to put in new spark plugs in your ride. Alright, and now all of the nuts have been removed. Now you'll also want to remove this hose from the head, and if you don't have a barb on your new head, remove the old barb and reuse it if possible. If it's the wrong size threading, just pick up a new one. and the old head has been removed, so it's off. Now's a good chance to get a first look inside this guy. Got some carbon buildup on the cylinder heads here. The cylinder walls look pretty nice though. They've got a little bit of a gloss to them, so if you got this off and you see this and you've got the time to do it, now would be a great time to hone the inside of these walls out. Otherwise, if not, you know, it is what it is. So now you'll simply take your new head and drop it on. Oh, put your gasket on first. My fancy new head gasket, copper gasket. It's much thinner than the fiber gaskets. If you're interested in how this affects compression ratio, check out my compression ratio video. It explains all of this. So, thinner material, more compression, more boom, more bang, more go. That's starting to look pretty sharp, if I do say so myself. I kind of like that, well, it's not chrome, but that silvery kind of look with that black. It looks mean. Anyways, there's new head. Go ahead and put all your nuts back on. If they came with washers, put those on accordingly. They might be there because these posts might be a little too long, but that may change with your new head. And one more note, as you're putting these nuts and washers back on, you may notice that the washers may be a little bit too big if you have a finned head here. So you get a couple options. You can file off your fins so your washers fit, or you can get new washers. Either option is perfectly fine. If you do file, just make sure you don't get any filings into the engine. That'd be bad. Otherwise, go ahead and get these tightened. Torque these down. It will come out to be 20 foot-pounds if you have a torque wrench. Otherwise, don't go too crazy on it. I'd recommend just getting a torque wrench though. Manufacturer recommends 16 pounds for the 550JS, 18 pounds for the 550SX, or 20 pounds. And you'll use the same number of foot-pounds for your exhaust manifold and your intake manifold whenever you go to put those back on. Now, quick note for all three of these pieces, whenever you tighten these down, don't go in a circle around. Start here, torque this one, go to the opposite side, and then maybe go here and then here. Work yourself in an irregular pattern, starting actually from your center and working out. So here, maybe here, 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 and then slowly tightening these, coming back to the center one, and just retorquing all these in an irregular fashion, and make sure that your head is tightened down evenly and completely, because you don't want to be having exhaust or any sort of air leakage at your gasket points here. Now go ahead and put your carburetor bracket back on. Helps if you put it on the right direction. And the orientation for mine is one washer on the bottom, bracket, washer, nut. Now, if you're just doing the head, remember the air intake manifold and carburetor never came off. This is part of the 550 video, or the 450-550 conversion video, and it's just off for that purpose because I'm trying to kind of do everything at once. So at this point, the carburetor would still be attached, and you just put those two bolts back in through your bracket here to reattach your carburetor bracket to the carburetor. And now that you got your last hose hooked up to your head, go ahead, throw your spark plugs on, make sure your boots are solidly connected to the spark plug cables. I like to leave the cap for my flame arrestor off whenever I first start this up after a rebuild. Sometimes I'll spike it with a bit of gas down the carburetor to get it to start up a little bit quicker, and that's a lot easier just leaving this off. And then just yanking this piece of pumice stone off and gassing it straight through the carb. Just make sure you keep your flame arrestor in a safe place where it won't get damaged or filled full of crud. And once you know that this runs well, you keep it running for 15 seconds or so at the most. Do it a couple times, just make sure it's going to run great and you don't have any exhaust leaks or anything like that. You're good to go. That is really all there is to head replacements. It's a pretty straightforward and simple process. If I miss anything, if you guys have any questions, throw it out there and I'll answer it in the comments section. Otherwise, I hope this has been helpful. Thanks for watching.